beloved chosen one, tonight is not arriving like every other night, and deep in your spirit you can already feel that something unseen is moving closer, something weighty, something holy, something that carries the breath of God over the pages of your life. You are not listening by accident. You are not here because of chance, routine, or coincidence. This moment has been allowed, arranged, and preserved because heaven has decided that this is the hour to speak directly into the places where you have grown tired, where you have grown silent, and where you have almost convinced yourself that nothing truly new could happen for you anymore. But God is stepping into that tired place tonight, and He is not stepping in with a small adjustment. He is stepping in with ink in His hand, authority in His voice, and power in His presence. Ready to write the greatest chapter of your life, you have lived through days that did not make sense. You have walked through seasons where you gave your best and still felt overlooked, where you stayed faithful and still felt delayed, where you prayed with tears in your eyes and heard nothing but silence around you. There were nights when you looked at your life and wondered whether the promises placed in your heart had expired. There were moments when you kept moving, not because everything was clear, but because something inside you refused to completely die. That something was not stubborn pride. It was the fingerprint of God on your soul. It was the quiet witness of heaven telling you that your story was never going to end in confusion, defeat, or shame. Tonight, that witness is growing louder. Tonight, the ache in your spirit is meeting an answer. Tonight, what felt like scattered pieces is being gathered by the hand of the author who never lost control of the story. Even when you could not read the chapter you were in, you thought some pages meant the end. You thought some losses proved you had missed your time. You thought certain doors closing were evidence that you had been forgotten. But God does not waste chapters, and He does not abandon what He marked. What looked unfinished to you was being held in divine suspense. What looked delayed to you was being prepared with precision. What looked like an ending was often only the place where God paused the sentence before writing a line so glorious that only He could receive the credit. So breathe for a moment and let your heart settle into this truth. You are standing at the edge of a turning point. This is not just another encouraging word to help you survive a difficult evening. This is a spiritual summons. This is heaven leaning close and telling you to be ready, because the chapter ahead will not look like the chapter behind you. The grief you carried will not have the final word. The rejection you endured will not define your name. The warfare that surrounded you will not determine your outcome. There is a higher hand writing now, and when God writes, no enemy can erase it, no delay can cancel it, and no human opinion can overrule it. You have been underestimated by people who only knew one version of you. You have been judged in seasons where you were still healing, still learning, still being shaped in hidden places. Some only saw your waiting, but they did not see your becoming. Some only saw your tears, but they did not see heaven collecting every one of them. Some only saw your quietness, but they did not understand that silence can be sacred when God is doing His deepest work beneath the surface. You are not behind. You are not discarded. You are not one of the forgotten ones standing outside of God's plan while others walk into blessing. You are one of the marked ones, one of the called ones, one of those who had to be forged in private because what is coming cannot be carried by a shallow soul. There is a reason the pressure has been so intense. There is a reason the battle has tried to wear down your expectation. There is a reason the enemy kept whispering that nothing would change, that this was all your life would ever be, that your best days were already buried somewhere behind you. Darkness always becomes loud when dawn is near. Resistance always intensifies when movement is close. The pressure around your life has not been proof that God left you. It has been proof that something significant is being guarded, and tonight that guarded thing is beginning to break into the open. Do not brush this off. Do not treat this night like a passing emotional moment. Lean in with your whole spirit. Tell your soul to wake up. Tell your fear to be still. Tell your memories of disappointment that they cannot prophesy over your future anymore. God is writing with fresh mercy tonight. He is writing with justice over old wounds. He is writing with restoration over years that looked empty. He is writing with power over places where you felt weak, and with purpose over places where you only saw pain. Type 27 in the comments as a sign that you are ready to step into what heaven is opening. And as you stand here inwardly, perhaps weary but still listening, perhaps bruised but still believing, perhaps uncertain but still hungry, understand this with all the strength you have left. You do not need to force the chapter that God is writing. You do not need to manipulate doors, beg the wrong people, or become someone false just to enter what has your name on it. What God authors carries His signature. It will come with alignment. It will come with holy timing. It will come with a peace that does not need constant striving to survive. Your part tonight is not to control the pen. Your part is to surrender to the writer. So get ready. Not with panic, but with expectation. Not with performance, but with faith. Not with noise, but with inward agreement. Let your heart say yes before your eyes see proof. Let your spirit make room before the door swings open. Let hope rise again, not because life has been easy, but because God has never failed to finish what He begins. The greatest chapter of your life is not a fantasy to comfort you through pain. It is a divine reality already forming, already breathing, already descending into your now. This night carries a weight your past cannot measure. This night carries an announcement your enemies cannot stop. This night carries the beginning of something that will make you look back and realize that every hard season was only preparation for the moment when God finally said, "Now." You have carried pain that other people could not read, and because they could not read it, they often named you wrongly. They saw the outer battle but missed the inner shaping. They saw the waiting but missed the calling. They saw the pressure but missed the oil of God resting on your life. That is why your past has felt so strange at times. Because you have not simply been moving through ordinary hardship. You have been living through the hidden weight that often surrounds a chosen life. And the truth is that being set apart by God rarely feels comfortable while it is happening. It often feels lonely before it feels glorious. It often feels confusing before it feels clear. It often feels like being overlooked by people while being deeply seen by heaven. This is where the story of David meets your spirit with unusual strength. David was chosen long before he was celebrated. He was anointed long before he was enthroned. He was called while still standing in fields that seemed too small for the future God had placed inside him. That matters for you tonight, because one of the hardest parts of a chosen life is learning that divine selection does not always come with immediate visibility. Sometimes God places greatness in secret before He reveals it in public. Sometimes He speaks destiny over your life while your surroundings still look ordinary. Sometimes He marks you in a place where almost no one notices, so that your confidence can be rooted in Him and not in applause. David knew what it was to be passed over by human eyes. When the prophet came to Jesse's house, the stronger and more impressive sons were brought forward first. They looked like leaders. They looked like kings. They looked like the obvious choices. But David was not even in the room. He was out with the sheep, carrying responsibility in obscurity, tending what belonged to his father, faithful in a place that seemed too small to contain the promise of God. Yet heaven did not overlook him there. The eyes of men moved past him, but the eyes of God rested on him. That is a word your soul needs right now. You may have been unseen by people, underestimated by systems, and left out of rooms that should have recognized your value, but none of that has ever meant that God lost sight of you. You know what it feels like to live in that kind of tension. You know what it is to carry something inside you that your current circumstances do not reflect. You know what it is to feel that your life contains more than what others assume, while still having to wake up and walk through ordinary days that do not seem to match the promise. That hidden tension can be exhausting. It can make you question whether you heard God correctly. It can make you wonder whether your season will ever change. But David's early story reminds you that the field is not proof of absence. The field can be the place of preparation. The field can be the place where courage is formed, where identity is purified, where your heart learns to love God's presence before it ever touches public reward. David was not made in the palace. He was formed in secret places with worship on his lips and responsibility in his hands. He learned to be steady when nobody was clapping. He learned to protect what was entrusted to him before greater things were ever placed under his care. He faced the lion and the bear where almost nobody saw it, which means his public victory over Goliath was built on private obedience. That is how God often works with a chosen person. The victories others will later call impressive are usually born from battles no one else even knows you fought. The strength people will admire in you tomorrow has often been shaped by tears, prayers, and lonely endurance that belonged to yesterday. So when you look back at your own life, do not reduce those hidden years to wasted time. Do not call them empty simply because they were quiet. Do not call them meaningless simply because they lacked recognition. Some of the most important chapters of your becoming were written in places where only God could fully witness them. He saw the discipline. He saw the restraint. He saw the nights when you kept believing with almost nothing in your hands. He saw the moments when you could have become bitter but chose instead to remain soft before him. He saw the private acts of faithfulness that the world may never honor properly. None of that was lost. None of that was small. The life of David also reveals something else your spirit must understand. Being chosen does not prevent opposition. In many ways, it exposes it. Once the oil of calling touches a life, conflict often rises around what has been marked. David was anointed, but he still faced misunderstanding, delay, and danger. He carried the promise, but he still had to walk through seasons where the crown was nowhere in sight. That is why your battles have felt so personal. The resistance around you has not only been about your present moment, it has also been about your future. There are things attached to your next chapter that darkness has tried to intimidate you out of receiving. But what God has written over your life cannot be canceled by being overlooked, and it cannot be destroyed by delay. David's story proves that the one chosen in secret can still rise in power at the appointed time. The field does not disqualify you. The waiting does not disqualify you. The hiddenness does not disqualify you. If anything, those places may be the evidence that God has been building roots strong enough to hold the weight of what is coming. Let this settle in you tonight as a deep and steady truth. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 7. That is why you cannot judge your life only by what people have noticed or ignored. God has been reading the heart, forming the heart, preparing the heart. You were set apart in places others dismissed. You were being anointed in moments that looked ordinary. And now, the chapter ahead is opening with the same God who saw David in the field and called him forward at exactly the right time. The breaking before becoming is one of the hardest mysteries for your heart to accept. Because when God is preparing a greater chapter, the process rarely feels glorious while you are inside it. It often feels like pressure without explanation, loss without clarity, and waiting without visible reward. You expect that if God has chosen you, the road should open quickly, the answers should come easily, and the promise should unfold without so much resistance. But that is not how the deepest shaping happens. Before gold reflects light, it meets fire. Before oil flows, olives are pressed. Before a crown rests on a head, the soul beneath it must be strengthened enough to carry the weight. That is why what broke around you was not always meant to destroy you. Much of it was exposing what could not go with you into the next chapter. You can see this truth in David with startling clarity. He was anointed by Samuel, marked by God, and called into a future larger than anything visible around him. Yet the anointing did not immediately remove hardship from his path. In fact, after the oil came the testing. After the promise came the process. David faced Goliath, and that victory made his name known. But being known is not the same as being established. What followed was not immediate ease. Saul turned against him. Songs were sung about David's victories, yet that same public favor stirred private hostility in the king. Suddenly, the one who had been anointed for the throne was running through caves, hiding in wilderness places, sleeping in uncertainty, and learning how to trust God when the visible evidence seemed to contradict the word over his life. That is where many chosen ones become discouraged. They think the presence of breaking means the absence of promise. They think that if the chapter ahead were truly from God, the middle would not feel so painful. But David's life tells another story. The breaking was not separate from the becoming. The wilderness was part of the training. The delay was not a denial of kingship. It was the place where character, restraint, and spiritual depth were being forged. David had opportunities to seize what God had promised by using his own hands in the wrong way. Saul was vulnerable before him more than once. The easy path would have been to strike, to take, to force the outcome. But David refused to build his future through disobedience. That restraint revealed the true shape of his heart. And that speaks directly to you tonight, because some of what has broken in your life has been removing the version of you that would have mishandled what is coming. Some relationships broke because they were too small to honor your next season. Some comforts broke because they were quietly weakening your dependence on God. Some plans broke because they were built from emotion rather than alignment. Some illusions broke because you needed to see clearly before stepping forwards. It hurt, and it may still hurt, but not every breaking is punishment. Sometimes it is mercy in a severe form. Sometimes it is God refusing to let you enter your next chapter carrying what would poison it from within. David learned songs in the field, courage in battle, and surrender in the cave. Each setting broke something and built something. The field broke his need to be seen. Battle broke his fear of giants. The cave broke his impulse to control timing. That is what the process does in a chosen life. It does not merely test your strength. It reveals your attachments. It shows you where pride still speaks, where fear still rules, where impatience still demands its own way. And once those things are exposed, God can begin refining them into something holy, stable, and fit for what lies ahead. Perhaps this is why the season you are leaving has felt so intense. You were not only being delayed, you were being deepened. You were not only being emptied, you were being purified. You were not only losing things, you were learning what must remain when everything temporary is shaken. The version of you that enters the greatest chapter of your life cannot be built only through comfort. It must know how to worship while waiting, how to obey while misunderstood, how to remain clean in heart when bitterness would be easier. David did not become a king merely because oil touched his head one day. He became ready because the hidden years taught him how to carry power without letting power corrupt him. So do not despise the breaking. Do not call the cave your grave. Do not assume the pressure means you are failing. The breaking before becoming is often the evidence that the old frame is too small for the new weight of glory. God is enlarging your capacity. He is teaching your hands for what is next and steadying your spirit so that when the door opens, you do not enter it fragile, reckless, or easily moved. You enter it rooted. And if this message is strengthening your spirit in this moment, let your quiet agreement take a simple form. You can like this message, share it with someone who needs this same reminder, and subscribe so you stay connected to what God continues speaking over your life. If this channel is blessing you deeply and you feel led to support it, there is also a way to donate through the description. Let every act be done from peace, not pressure, as a gentle sign that your heart is in alignment with what is being poured into you. Now lift your eyes again. David's cave was never the end of his story, and neither is your season of breaking the end of yours. It is shaping the vessel. It is strengthening the inner walls. It is teaching you how to carry a promise with humility and how to survive the silence between anointing and fulfillment. The chapter ahead will require everything this season has taught you. One day you will look back and see that what felt like falling apart was often God clearing the ground, widening the space, and preparing you to stand in a life that could only be entered after the breaking had done its sacred work. There comes a moment in every chosen life when the crossroads is no longer hidden inside quiet feelings, and it stands clearly before you as a spiritual decision. This is not always a crossroads that others can see. It may not look dramatic on the outside. There may be no trumpet, no visible sign, no public announcement. Yet inside, something becomes unmistakably clear. You cannot remain as you were. You cannot keep entertaining the same compromises, the same fears, the same delays in obedience, and still expect to step fully into what God is writing. A divine chapter may be opening, but there is also a divine response required from you. This is where many hesitate, because the crossroads asks for surrender before it offers visible proof. David knew that kind of moment well. His life was not only a story of promise and waiting, it was also a story of repeated inner decisions, moments where he had to choose whether he would trust God's way or reach for his own. In the wilderness, while Saul hunted him with relentless jealousy, David was not only running from danger, he was being brought face to face with the kind of man he would become under pressure. It is one thing to worship in the field when all is quiet. It is another thing to remain clean in heart when your enemy is close enough to touch and your opportunity for revenge is suddenly within reach. That is what made the cave moment so powerful. David had already been anointed. He had already faced giants. He had already proven courage in public battle. Yet the greater test in some ways was hidden from crowds. Saul entered a cave, vulnerable and unaware, while David and his men were concealed in the darkness. To everyone around David, this looked like the answer. It looked like divine permission. It looked like the perfect chance to end the chase, remove the threat, and seize the path to the throne. Even those near him encouraged it. They believed the moment had arrived for David to act. But a crossroads is dangerous precisely because the wrong path can look efficient. It can look justified. It can look like wisdom to those who only measure by outcomes. David could have convinced himself that taking Saul's life would simply speed up what God had already promised. He could have dressed impatience in spiritual language and called it destiny. He could have used pain as permission to act outside the will of God, but he did not. Even in a cave full of pressure, even with men whispering that this was his moment, David chose restraint. He cut off only the corner of Saul's robe, and even that act pierced his conscience. That detail matters deeply. It shows you a heart so sensitive before God that even a small act of dishonor felt heavy. You are standing at your own kind of crossroads now. Perhaps not with a king in a cave, but with choices that test the same core of your spirit. Will you force what God has not released? Will you answer betrayal with bitterness? Will you justify impatience because you are tired of waiting? Will you wound others because you were wounded first? Or will you trust that what God writes does not need sin to help it arrive? This is the divine warning hidden inside your moment. Do not let urgency drive you into disobedience. Do not let pain become your counselor. Do not let the pressure of delay talk you into methods that will stain the very thing you have been praying for. The crossroads is not only about avoiding evil in its obvious form. It is also about refusing the subtle corruption of self-rule. It is about remembering that God's promises must be carried by God's character. David understood that if the throne came through rebellion, then the throne itself would already be wounded at its foundation. So he chose to remain under God's timing rather than step ahead of it. That choice did not remove hardship immediately. Saul still lived. The wilderness did not disappear overnight. The tension remained. Yet something stronger than immediate relief was formed in David that day. He proved that his trust in God was greater than his hunger for quick resolution. This is where your soul must become still and honest before the Lord. There are decisions before you that will shape more than a day or a week. They will shape the atmosphere of the chapter you are entering. The next move cannot be built on panic. It cannot be built on revenge. It cannot be built on the need to prove yourself right. It must be built on surrender. Even if surrender feels slower than control, God's way may stretch your patience, but it protects your future. The flesh wants immediate victory. The spirit wants holy alignment. David's restraint in the cave became part of the reason he could later carry authority without being consumed by it. The man who refused to seize power wrongly was being prepared to hold power rightly. That is why this crossroads matters so much for you. It is not merely deciding what happens next. It is revealing who you are becoming as the next chapter opens. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord. Psalm chapter 27, verse 14. This is not passive weakness. This is active trust. This is strength that refuses to take shortcuts. This is faith that would rather endure a longer night than step into mourning by betraying the heart of God. So tonight, as heaven presses this truth into you, let the crossroads do its holy work. Let it separate impulse from obedience. Let it expose every temptation to force, grasp, retaliate, or run ahead. What God is writing over your life is too sacred to be rushed by fear. The chapter ahead is near, but it must be entered with clean hands, a steady spirit, and a heart that trusts the author more than the urgency of the moment. At the beginning of this step forward, there is one practical reason this message may be meeting you at the right time. When your mind has been exhausted by pressure, delay, overthinking, mental fog, stress, and the constant weight of carrying too much for too long, even your spirit can feel harder to steady. That is why something like the Genius Wave, also called Genius Song, may interest some of you. Because it is presented as a simple audio experience designed to support focus, clarity, creativity, calm, and mental sharpness in just a few minutes a day. If that is something you want to explore for yourself, you can look for the official information through the description or the pinned comment, and be careful with imitations or fake versions. Only use the official source if you decide to try it. And with that said, return now to the deeper truth, because no tool matters if your soul does not understand the season God has brought you into. Heaven interrupts your timeline in ways that can feel confusing when you are still measuring your life by clocks, deadlines, and expectations built from your own understanding. You often assume that if something is delayed, then something is wrong. If a door has not opened yet, you wonder whether you missed your chance. If the answer has not come by now, you begin to fear that the chapter has already passed you by. But the God who writes your life does not operate inside panic. He is not rushed by your fear, and he is not threatened by the time it takes to prepare what must be prepared. What feels delayed to you may actually be divinely paused, because the chapter coming next requires alignment that only God can see in full. David knew this tension in a deeply personal way. He had already been anointed. The oil had already touched his head. The word had already gone forth over his life. Yet after that sacred moment, he did not walk straight into the throne room to reign in peace. He walked through conflict, pressure, pursuit, misunderstanding, and long stretches where his circumstances looked nothing like the promise spoken over him. That is the kind of timeline interruption that tests the heart. It is one thing to receive a word from God. It is another thing to live through the years between the word and the fulfillment without turning cold, bitter, or reckless. What made David's waiting so painful was not only the length of it, but the contradiction inside it. He had a calling on his life, yet he spent time hiding. He had been chosen to lead, yet he was often forced to run. He had already defeated giants, yet he still found himself in caves. By human reasoning, it made no sense. If the promise was real, why the delay? If the favor was real, why the wilderness? If the next chapter was appointed, why did the pages seem to turn so slowly? Those are the same questions that rise in you when life does not move according to the timetable you imagined. But God sees what you do not see. He sees what still must be healed in you before elevation. He sees what relationships must shift, what motives must be purified, what strength must be formed, what dangers must pass, what doors must close, and what hidden structures must be prepared before your next step becomes safe and sustainable. Divine pause is not divine neglect. It is often divine mercy. If David had stepped into the throne too early, before the wilderness deepened his dependence, before sorrow softened his pride, before pursuit taught him restraint, then the weight of kingship could have crushed parts of him still unprepared to carry it. This is where your perspective must begin to change tonight. You have called some seasons wasted simply because they did not produce visible movement. You have looked at pauses and named them absence. You have looked at waiting and named it failure. But some of your holiest progress happened where nothing seemed to be happening at all. God was preserving your future by slowing the process. He was protecting your next chapter from premature exposure. He was teaching you how to stand when there was no applause, how to hear him when there was no confirmation, how to remain faithful when there was no immediate reward. David's life shows that sacred timing often feels uncomfortable before it feels wise. There were likely moments when he wanted everything resolved at once. When he wanted Saul removed, the threat ended, the promise visible, the wandering over. Yet the timeline remained under God's hand, not David's. And because David did not force the chapter open, he entered it when the foundation beneath him had been strengthened by years of hidden formation. The weight made him weightier. The pause made him deeper. The tension trained him to seek God not merely as a deliverer from trouble, but as the keeper of his soul. Perhaps that is what this season has been doing in you. Perhaps heaven has not been denying you, but ripening you. Perhaps what looked like interruption was actually preservation. Perhaps the very thing you thought was holding you back was keeping you from walking into a version of blessing that you were not yet ready to sustain. There is mercy in not arriving too early. There is kindness in not being exposed before you are rooted. There is wisdom in a God who refuses to let your life unfold according to pressure alone. So be careful how you interpret the pause. Do not let delay speak a lie over your identity. Do not let the stillness convince you that the story has gone silent. The author is still writing. The hand of God is still moving. The chapter is still forming. David was never forgotten in the wilderness, and you are not forgotten in yours. Heaven has not misplaced your name. The timeline has not slipped out of divine control. What is coming to you has been held back only until the moment when purpose, character, readiness, and timing meet under the command of God. And when that meeting happens, what once felt delayed will suddenly reveal itself as perfectly timed. You will understand that the pause was not empty. You will see that every hidden lesson, every restrained impulse, every unanswered question, and every long night was preparing you to enter the next chapter with a steadier spirit. God is not late with your life. He is writing with precision. He is aligning what your eyes cannot yet measure. And tonight, even before you see the full shape of it, your heart can rest in this truth. The pause has purpose. The waiting has weight. And the God who anointed David in secret still knows exactly when to call his chosen ones forward into the chapter that was always meant for them. The battle over your next chapter has been more intense than many people around you could ever understand. Because what is being contested is not just your comfort, not just your mood, not just one passing season, but the shape of what your life is about to become. There are seasons when the resistance against you feels strangely concentrated, when confusion grows louder, when fatigue becomes heavier, when small discouragements arrive in waves, and when it seems as though everything is trying to drain your expectation at once. That kind of pressure is not always random. Sometimes it is the shadow cast by something significant that is close. Sometimes it is the evidence that the chapter in front of you carries enough weight that darkness would rather exhaust you before you ever step into it. David knew this kind of battle with painful intimacy. By the time he moved through the wilderness, the struggle around him was no longer only about survival. It was about whether he would remain the man God was forming while he passed through prolonged opposition. Saul was not merely a difficult person in David's path. He represented a long season of threat hanging over David's future, a relentless attempt to crush what had already been chosen by God. David had the anointing, but he also had a pursuer. He had a promise, but he also had pressure. He had moments of victory, but he also had long nights where danger felt close and the outcome still seemed unresolved. That is why your battle has felt so layered. It has not only touched one area of your life, it has pressed your mind, your peace, your confidence, your discipline, your sense of timing, and even your ability to recognize yourself clearly. The enemy rarely wastes energy on what carries no purpose. The heaviness around your life has often been trying to make you surrender inwardly before anything changes outwardly. If your expectation can be weakened enough, if your focus can be scattered enough, if your soul can be talked into passivity, bitterness, or self-sabotage, then you may arrive at the edge of your next chapter too weary to walk in with boldness. That is why the battle over this season has been so strategic. David had to learn how to stand in the middle of that kind of warfare without letting it rewrite his identity. He could not allow Saul's hatred to become the mirror through which he saw himself. He could not let the cave become the permanent definition of who he was. He could not let the constant threat teach him that fear was normal and destiny was foolish. He had to remember, again and again, that the pressure around him was not greater than the word over him. That is where your spirit must grow stronger now. You cannot read your future only by what is fighting you. You must also read it by what God has spoken, what He has preserved, and what has refused to die in you despite every attack. There is a reason certain old thoughts have tried to return. There is a reason discouragement has been whispering so persistently. There is a reason distraction, delay, emotional heaviness, and strange resistance have gathered around this moment. The chapter ahead does not simply offer relief. It carries movement, restoration, authority, and clarity. It carries a kind of forward step that could reorder things far beyond what you can currently see. David's enemies understood that if he remained alive and aligned, the throne would one day be occupied by the one God had chosen. In the same way, the warfare around your life has often been a reaction to what becomes possible if you remain steady now. But the battle itself is also revealing your growth. There was a time when certain pressures would have broken your rhythm completely. There was a time when confusion would have silenced you longer. There was a time when disappointment would have pushed you into deeper retreat. Yet here you are, still listening, still reaching, still asking heaven for truth, still refusing to let the darkness have the last word. That matters more than you realize. Survival with faith still intact is not a small thing. Remaining tender before God while moving through conflict is not weakness. It is evidence that the inner architecture of your soul is becoming stronger than the storms around it. David did not win only by escaping danger. He won by becoming the kind of man who could stay near to God in danger. He learned to inquire of the Lord. He learned to strengthen himself in God. He learned that the battle is not mastered by panic, noise, or rushing ahead, but by staying rooted in the presence of the one who already sees the end from the beginning. That is the shift happening in you now. You are being called out of reactive living and into spiritual steadiness. You are being taught that the next chapter cannot be entered with a frantic soul. It must be entered by someone who has learned how to breathe under pressure, discern under tension, and keep moving without surrendering peace. And as this message meets you in the middle of that battle, let your response be simple and sincere. If this word is helping you stay anchored, you can like it so more people who are fighting silent battles can find it. You can share it with someone whose faith feels tired. You can subscribe so you remain connected to these moments of strengthening and spiritual clarity. And if this work is nourishing you in a meaningful way and you feel led to support it, there is a donation option in the description. Let it be a gentle act of partnership, never pressure, only peace. Now come back to the center of this truth. The battle over your next chapter is real, but it is not final. The pressure is real, but it is not sovereign. The resistance is real, but it does not carry the pen. David was hunted, opposed, worn down, and tested, yet none of those things had the authority to cancel what God had established over his life. They could trouble him, but they could not erase him. They could delay conditions, but they could not destroy calling. In the same way, the warfare around you may have been loud, but it has not been Lord. It has not ruled your future. It has only circled what heaven already marked. So lift your head again tonight. The fight has not been proof that you are losing. In many ways, it has been proof that something worth resisting is now near. Keep your heart guarded from despair. Keep your thoughts under the light of truth. Keep your spirit turned toward God, because the next chapter will not be handed to the version of you that gives up in the middle of opposition. It will be entered by the version of you that learned to remain faithful in the battle, clear in the tension, and deeply anchored while everything around you tried to shake loose your confidence. This is not the hour to collapse under pressure. This is the hour to recognize that what is fighting you has already sensed what heaven is about to release. Your obedience unlocks more than the next visible step. It unlocks the atmosphere in which your destiny can safely unfold. That is why this part of the journey feels so weighty, because you are not merely deciding whether to do one right thing in one passing moment. You are deciding whether your life will move by impulse or by alignment, by fear or by trust, by wounded reaction or by surrendered obedience. Many people want the chapter God has written, but far fewer are willing to walk the path that keeps their hearts clean enough to carry it. Yet this is the path before you now. The door is not opened by striving alone. It is opened by obedience that remains steady even when the outcome is still unseen. David's life shows this with piercing clarity. By the time he had endured the field, faced Goliath, survived the cave, and outlasted the long pursuit of Saul, he had already proven many things. He had shown bravery, endurance, restraint, and faith under pressure. But even then, the decisive shaping of his path continued through obedience. He had to keep asking not only what was possible, but what was permitted by God. He had to keep choosing not merely what would relieve his pain, but what would honor the Lord who had anointed him. This is what separates a chosen person from a self-driven one. A self-driven person keeps asking how quickly the promise can be reached. A surrendered person keeps asking how faithfully the promise can be received. There is something in you tonight that already knows this. You know that the next chapter cannot be entered with half surrender. You know that unresolved compromise, secret rebellion, or selective obedience would poison the very blessing you have prayed for. You know that God's best does not simply require talent, desire, or emotional intensity. It requires a yielded heart. That is why the Spirit keeps drawing your attention back to the inner place, the hidden place where your true yes is formed. Before the world sees what changes around you, heaven sees what settles within you. David had many chances to become a smaller man than his calling required. He could have allowed offense to guide him. He could have answered injustice with revenge. He could have used his pain as a reason to take shortcuts. But again and again, his deepest breakthroughs were tied to his willingness to remain under God's hand rather than run ahead of it, even when Saul's life was in reach. David refused to force what obedience had not released. Even when weariness could have excused compromise, he kept returning to the fear of the Lord. That kind of obedience does not always look dramatic in the moment, but it builds unseen doors in the spirit. It clears ground beneath your feet. It aligns your life with what heaven is already prepared to release. This is why obedience feels costly before it feels powerful. It asks you to let go of timing you wanted to control. It asks you to release methods that seem quicker. It asks you to trust God's wisdom above your own emotional logic. Sometimes it asks you to be still when you want to act. Sometimes it asks you to act when fear wants you to freeze. Sometimes it asks you to walk away from what looks appealing but carries no peace. Sometimes it asks you to stay faithful in hidden places long after excitement fades. But obedience is never empty. Every surrendered step is building something. Every act of trust is opening something. Every refusal to compromise is protecting something you may not fully see yet. You may have felt lately that one decision matters more than usual, and you are right to feel that weight. Certain moments in life carry unusual consequence. One response can preserve your peace or disturb it. One agreement can move you toward clarity or back into confusion. One act of surrender can break a pattern that has lingered for years. David understood that kingship was not only about being chosen. It was also about becoming the kind of man whose private posture before God could sustain public authority. That is what obedience was creating in him. It was not just earning an outcome. It was shaping a vessel. So hear this clearly tonight. Your obedience is not a small thing hidden in a corner of your private life. It is a key. It is not glamorous, but it is powerful. It is not loud, but it carries consequence. When you obey God in the place where nobody else can see, you are telling heaven that your heart values His voice above convenience, above speed, above self-protection, above pride. That kind of obedience invites trust from God. It becomes the soil in which greater assignments can safely grow. This does not mean you obey perfectly. David himself was human, flawed, and deeply in need of mercy. But the overall direction of his life shows a man who kept returning to God, kept reverencing God, and kept understanding that the promise was never permission to live carelessly. That is the posture being asked of you now. Not performance, but surrender. Not panic, but trust. Not control, but yieldedness. The next chapter is not unlocked by your strength alone. It is unlocked by your willingness to let God's will matter more than your immediate relief. Let this settle deeply into your spirit. To obey is better than sacrifice. 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 22. Those words cut through every excuse and every delay. God is not looking for outward display that hides inward resistance. He is looking for a heart that says yes. The chapter ahead has already been written in heaven, but your path into it is being shaped by the obedience you choose right now. David's story proves that surrender is never weakness when it is placed in God's hands. It becomes direction. It becomes protection. It becomes access. So stand still before the Lord and let your yes become whole. The door in front of you does not require force. It requires alignment. What you obey today may not seem dramatic to others, but in the spirit it is moving things, unlocking things, preparing things. Your obedience is clearing the path for what God has been preparing all along, and the life waiting on the other side of that yes is greater than anything fear has been trying to make you protect. God writes what no man can. And that truth becomes most visible when your life reaches the point where human effort, human approval, and human control can no longer explain what begins to happen. There are chapters that people can help with, doors that relationships can influence, moments that skill and discipline can support. But then there are moments that carry the unmistakable signature of God. These are the moments when restoration arrives in a form no enemy could predict, when favor appears beyond what your history could have secured, and when the very areas that once seemed buried begin to rise with new life. This is the kind of chapter opening over you now. It is not merely a better version of your past. It is a God-written turning that no man could manufacture and no opposition could permanently stop. David's life reveals this with stunning force. After the field, after Goliath, after the songs, after the jealousy, after the pursuit, after the caves, after the long ache of waiting, there came a point when the story moved by God's hand in a way that no human plotting could take credit for. David did not claw his way to the throne through corruption. He did not manipulate every rival into removal. He did not build his future by destroying everyone who stood ahead of him. He waited, suffered, learned, obeyed, and remained under the hand of God. Then when the appointed time came, the movement into kingship was not a stolen thing. It was a written thing. It was not the result of fleshly striving finally succeeding. It was the unfolding of what heaven had already decided. That matters for you because you may have spent too much time measuring your future by what people are willing to do for you. You may have looked at closed doors and assumed that human refusal was final. You may have watched others receive support while your own path remained narrow. and quietly concluded that perhaps your chapter would never come. But when God writes, He is not limited by the people who overlooked you. He is not bound by systems that delayed you. He is not intimidated by those who tried to control access to places you were called to enter. Men may close what they can reach with their hands, but they cannot close what God opens by decree. David's rise was not simple, and it was not free of sorrow. Even when Saul's chapter ended, David still walked through complexity on the mow. He grieved. He moved with care. He did not treat the unfolding of destiny as an excuse to become arrogant. Then the tribe of Judah anointed him king in Hebron, and later all Israel came to recognize what God had already established. Notice the beauty of that progression. What had once been hidden in a shepherd boy became visible to a nation. What had once seemed delayed beyond reason became undeniable reality. What had once lived only as oil on his head and promise in his spirit now took form in the world around him. That is what happens when God writes. The invisible becomes visible at the right time. This is the restoration your heart needs to understand. Restoration is not only getting back what was lost. Sometimes it is being brought into something greater than what was lost ever could have held. David did not simply recover from the years of hiding. He emerged with a depth, a wisdom, and a spiritual authority that the field alone could not have produced, and the cave alone could not have defined. The delayed years were not erased, but they were redeemed. They became part of the making of a king. In the same way, what God writes over your life now is not a thin apology for past pain. It is a weightier chapter, one that gathers even the broken pieces and places them inside a design too purposeful to be explained by chance. There will be people who cannot understand the shift when it happens. Some will remember only your hidden years. Some will know only the version of you that was weary, overlooked, or still in process. Some will be surprised when favor begins to rest on your life in visible ways. But you do not need to spend your strength explaining what God has written. When His hand becomes evident, explanation loses its urgency. The same people who did not recognize David in the field could not deny him forever when heaven's writing unfolded across history. This is why you must guard your heart from unbelief now. The chapter God is writing does not need constant human validation to become real. It needs your trust. It needs your willingness to believe that divine authorship is stronger than human resistance. It needs your spirit to remain open to favor that may arrive from places you never expected. God's writing is often surprising because it bypasses the paths you assumed were necessary. He can restore in one movement what took years to unravel. He can establish in one season what looked impossible through many seasons. He can bring your name into rooms where no campaign of self-promotion could have taken it. So let your heart answer Him with simple faith. Comment, God wrote this. Let that be your quiet agreement that the chapter ahead will not be explained by luck, manipulation, or human power. It will bear the signature of the Lord, and let this word anchor you as you stand on the edge of that unfolding. The Lord will fulfill His purpose for me. Psalm chapter 138, verse 8. David knew that what God begins, God is able to carry to completion. That same assurance is being offered to you tonight. The chapter ahead carries favor no man can block. Restoration no enemy can reverse, and elevation no human hand can counterfeit. God is writing now, and when He writes, the wounds of your past lose their power to define you. The waiting loses its sting. The opposition loses its claim. The story moves forward under a higher authority. What no man could create, no man can cancel. Because the pen that matters most has always been in the hand of God. Step into your crowned identity. Because the deepest shift in this chapter is not only about what changes around you, but about who you finally allow yourself to become under the hand of God. There is a version of you that has survived long enough in hiding, apologized long enough for carrying something different, and shrunk long enough beneath the weight of past battles. That version of you may have been necessary in one season, because survival often teaches caution, silence, and restraint. But there comes a time when the same soul that learned how to endure must now learn how to rise. Not in pride, not in self-invention, not in restless ambition, but in agreement with what God has spoken from the beginning. The crown is not merely a symbol of reward, it is a symbol of identity received, responsibility embraced, and calling no longer treated as distant or theoretical. David reached that threshold after years of being formed through hiddenness, conflict, and waiting. By the time he moved fully into the place God had prepared for him, he was no longer only the shepherd in the field or the fugitive in the cave. Those chapters remained part of him, but they no longer defined the whole of him. He had to step into the identity that matched what God had written. He had to stop living only as a hunted man and begin living as an appointed king. That may sound simple, but inwardly it is one of the hardest transitions a chosen person ever makes. Sometimes the battle is not only receiving the promise, sometimes the battle is believing you are truly allowed to carry it. You know this tension in your own spirit. There are moments when you still think from the place of old wounds. You still expect to be overlooked. You still brace for rejection before it comes. You still measure yourself by seasons when you were hidden, delayed, or treated as though your life held little weight. That is understandable, because pain leaves impressions, and long waiting can train the soul to live defensively. But the chapter opening before you cannot be lived from the posture of permanent smallness. You cannot wear yesterday's fear into tomorrow's assignment. You cannot keep speaking to yourself as though you are still abandoned in places where God has already called you forward. David had to inhabit a new inner posture. Once the kingdom was entrusted to him, he could not continue moving as though he were still only escaping danger. He had to govern. He had to lead. He had to build. He had to carry authority in a way that reflected the God who had raised him up. This required more than public recognition. It required inward agreement. It required the man inside him to come into alignment with the mantle now resting on him. That is what stepping into your crowned identity means tonight. It means that your soul begins to agree with heaven more than with old shame. It means you stop reducing yourself to the chapter that hurt you most. It means you allow God's naming to become louder than every lesser voice that once told you who you were not. This does not mean forgetting humility. David's life never teaches arrogant self-exaltation. Real crowned identity is not noisy self-worship. It is quiet certainty rooted in God. It is the strength to occupy your place without apology and without vanity. It is the peace of knowing that what God has appointed, you do not need to counterfeit. It is also the maturity to recognize that crowns are never only for display. They come with burden, stewardship, and responsibility. David's crown was attached to the care of a people, the administration of justice, the honoring of God in public leadership, and the ongoing need for dependence. In the same way, your next chapter is not merely about finally being seen. It is about being entrusted. It is about carrying what comes next with wisdom, reverence, and steadiness. So the call before you is deeper than emotional encouragement. It is a call to shed the identity that no longer fits the life God is bringing you into. You cannot continue to call yourself disqualified if God has called you chosen. You cannot continue to call yourself invisible if God is positioning you to stand. You cannot continue to bow inwardly to old labels once the Lord has placed a different word over your life. David could honor the memory of the field without living there forever. He could remember the cave without building his future from cave instincts. He could carry the lessons of his old seasons while still stepping fully into the new one. That is the holy balance now being asked of you. There will be moments when this rising feels unfamiliar. New authority often does. New peace can feel strange to a person who lived too long in tension. New favor can feel uncomfortable to someone who became used to surviving without it. But unfamiliar does not mean false. Sometimes it simply means you are entering a life your past could not have prepared you to recognize right away. Let the discomfort of newness teach you dependence rather than retreat. Let it draw you closer to God, not back into the patterns that once kept you hidden. David's crowned identity was never about proving he was worthy by human standards. It was about responding to what God had already declared. That is why this verse belongs over your spirit tonight. I have found David my servant. With my sacred oil I have anointed him. Psalm chapter 89, verse 20. The finding came from God. The anointing came from God. The identity was rooted in God's initiative long before men could fully understand it. The same pattern holds true for you. Your deepest identity is not something you manufacture. It is something you receive and walk in. So stand taller in your spirit now. Not because you have become perfect, but because God has remained faithful. Not because every battle is forgotten, but because none of them canceled what was spoken over you. The crown before you is not fantasy. It is the visible form of a calling that has already been carried through fire, delay, obscurity, and testing. Step into it with clean hands, with a softened heart, with reverence, and with courage. You are not stepping into someone else's life. You are stepping into the truest version of the life heaven has been preparing for you all along. This is the night that changes everything. Not because lightning flashes across the sky or because every question is answered at once, but because something real has shifted inside you and before God. The crossing often begins in the spirit before it becomes visible in the natural. It begins when fear loosens its grip, when delay loses its authority, when old labels stop sounding true, and when your heart finally agrees with what heaven has been saying over you all along. That is where you stand now. You are no longer only looking at the chapter ahead from a distance. You are crossing into it. You are stepping over the line that once separated survival from surrender, hiding from rising, exhaustion from expectation. The past may still be behind you in memory, but it is no longer in charge of your future. David knew this crossing. There came a point when the long wilderness was no longer the environment of his life, when the running was no longer the defining rhythm, when the hidden anointing became visible responsibility. He did not step into a future that resembled his pain. He stepped into a future that had been shaped through his pain but was not ruled by it. That is the difference you must understand tonight. God does not merely bring you out so you can keep living under the shadow of what once wounded you. He brings you through so you can enter a life transformed by his faithfulness. David's past gave him scars, wisdom, songs, humility, and dependence. But it did not own his throne. And your past, no matter how intense it was, will not own the chapter God is opening over you now. There is a holy finality in this moment. Not the finality of an ending without hope, but the finality of a threshold crossed. Some things are ending because they cannot follow you where you are going. Certain fears have reached their limit. Certain cycles have exhausted their power. Certain old conversations inside your mind can no longer remain unchallenged. You have spent enough years doubting what God placed in you. You have spent enough nights shrinking back from your own calling. You have spent enough energy trying to make peace with a smaller life than the one heaven prepared. Tonight, the Spirit of God is pressing a deeper certainty into you. You are meant to walk forward. You are meant to receive what God has written. You are meant to live in a way that no longer resembles the prison of your former season. And because this crossing is sacred, let prayer rise naturally from your heart now. Father, in this very moment, I place this listener before you. You have seen every hidden battle, every delayed answer, every tear that no one else noticed, every silent prayer whispered in the dark, every ache they could not explain, and every place where hope almost slipped from their hands. Thank you for preserving them. Thank you for carrying them through what should have broken them. Thank you for keeping alive what the enemy tried to bury. Tonight, let your peace settle over their mind. Let your truth become louder than fear. Let every false word spoken over their life lose its power now. Heal what still hurts. Strengthen what has grown tired. Confirm what you have spoken. Open what you have appointed. Close what is not from you. Lead them with clarity. Guard them with mercy. And establish them in the chapter you are writing. Let them walk in obedience, humility, courage, and holy confidence. Restore what needs restoring. Redeem what needs redeeming. And let this night become a marker of divine movement in their life. In the name of Jesus, amen. Now stay in that atmosphere for a moment, because prayer is not an interruption of the message. It is the seal upon it. It is where everything spoken is laid before God and entrusted to His hands. David could not have crossed into his next chapter by strength alone. He needed the God who called him, sustained him, and established him. And so do you. Your future will not be built merely by intensity, motivation, or emotion. It will be built by grace, by guidance, by daily surrender, and by the faithful hand of the Lord upon your life. So as this message comes to its closing turn, do not let it become only something you heard. Let it become something you carry. Let it remain with you tomorrow morning when the room is quiet and real life begins again. Let it remain when old thoughts try to revisit you. Let it remain when the visible evidence still unfolds step by step. This is how crossing happens, not always in one dramatic display, but in a deep inner yes, repeated until your life begins to match what your spirit has received. And if this word has truly met you tonight, you can gently like it so this message reaches others standing at their own threshold. You can share it with someone who needs strength for the chapter they are entering. You can subscribe so you stay connected to these moments of truth, prayer, and spiritual direction. And if this work has been feeding you in a meaningful way and you feel led to support it, there is a donation option in the description. Let everything be done from peace and gratitude. Never pressure. What matters most now is that you do not step back into agreement with the old chapter. David could not return to the field as though the calling had vanished, nor could he live forever as if the cave still held him. He had to move with what God was doing, and now so must you. The chapter opening before you will ask for faith, but it will also give strength. It will ask for obedience, but it will also carry grace. It will ask for courage, but it will also reveal that God has already gone ahead of you. So receive this night as a crossing. Receive it as a quiet but irreversible shift. Receive it as the hour when your soul stopped negotiating with fear and began agreeing with heaven. The future before you will not look like the life behind you, because the hand writing it is the hand of God. He has seen the whole story from the beginning. He has wasted nothing. He has forgotten nothing. And now he calls you forward. Not as someone abandoned by the past, but as someone prepared through it for the greatest chapter yet.